right, everybody, we're back on Sunday Night Topics with Pastor Neil. I'm Eric. This is Pastor Neil DeBose. We are coming to you live from Bethesda Church of God, the Stay In Youth Ministries room. We've got our big audience full of Jimmy and Jimmy.
In a Starburst bag.
Jimmy in a Starburst bag. But no, seriously, we're glad to be back again Sunday nights. We've been coming to you guys. This is our last week of the series, The Worst Year Ever. But also, this is the last week that we'll be doing this on Sunday nights for this year. We'll finish out kind of everybody's getting out of school and Christmas travel and moving, all this kind of stuff. So we will be back January 3rd. That is the first Sunday of the new year for back on our Sunday Night Topics. Now, Wednesday nights, still on for this Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, live on the Facebook, YouTube, also in person. You guys be here.
Wear your mask.
That's right. Wear your mask. Working on social distance. We're doing all that kind of stuff. So make sure you're here. Make sure you got everything buttoned up there. Neil can go over the schedule for Wednesday nights. He'll go over that Wednesday night. But Sunday night, this is our last one for the year 2020. We're going to end Worst Year Ever series on the worst year ever, worst weekend ever, all that kind of stuff. We're going to do all that. So we've gone through this. This is week 4 of this series. It's been a great series. It's been a great year doing this. We started this back in March as all this pandemic kind of hit, and we were doing Wednesday nights, and then we started doing our little thing on Sunday nights going on. So we are going to continue this series into the new year. Just going to take a little break here at the end of the year, give you guys some time to spend with family and that kind of stuff. But going on, finishing up this series, we've talked about all kinds of things. And what's crazy is we kind of started this just kind of random stuff that we got with people, and we had kind of random topics and things we wanted to do, and then we started doing this, and really we had planned on continuing this service, but we had planned on it being more like a tie-in to our Wednesday night theme, but then we weren't able to do Wednesday nights in person for up until about the last 5-6 weeks or so, kind of back in here. So but what's crazy is here we are at the end of the year. Here we are finishing up this series, The Worst Year Ever, and the amount of stuff, and I would like to say that me and Neil were smart enough to sit down and plan all this out. I know a lot of these churches and youth ministers and people that do podcasts and this kind of stuff, they plan all this stuff out where they start here and it ties all in together. But there's been a lot of Sunday nights where we say, what are we going to do next week? Kind of thing. So
absolutely.
We're not real prepared as far as planning long term. We are prepared when we come in on Sunday night, but as far as saying, okay, for the next 4 weeks we're going to do this, then let's try to find a series that ties in with this, ties in with that. But what the crazy thing is, and how the Lord works through everything, is all the things we started talking about in March have kind of tied back into this last series.
That's exactly
here,
right.
On the worst year ever, where we've kind of we had a bunch of stuff on how to do things and how to study and how to get through the hard times and that kind of stuff. And this is kind of the ending of that, and where we're tie it all in. We're the big idea of this message here, and this is what this series we're ending up. It says we can praise God because He does not change.
Right.
Even though our circumstances do, we can be confident He will bring us through our struggles, and the Spirit will finish His work in us. And as we're finishing up, this is kind of fitting that we're finishing this year up, and that we're talking about how even through the worst pandemic, and one of the worst pandemics in history, and of course, obviously in our lifetimes,
right?
And people are dying at a huge rate. People are getting sick at a huge rate now, and it kind of went away, or not really went away, but we had a big thing and kind of leveled out, and it's back again. So who knows what's going to hold?
That's right.
The start of next year is probably going to be much like the end of this year.
Right.
And
right there, it hit me. I saw a thing of when the flu first came out.
Yeah.
Now everybody, you've had the flu. You get a flu shot. The flu's just a thing now.
That's right.
But when the flu first come out, there was a sign that was handwritten. Now we get printed signs and whatever, and it was wear a mask.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, make sure you hygiene.
That's right.
And all these things, and I'm looking, and it's like This was over 100 years ago.
That's right.
And, you know, you hear history repeats itself. And then I've wondered, wow, we've always had something, whether it be smallpox, whether it be the measles, whether it be the flu. So we're freaking out. Is it real? Yes, it's real. But we're freaking out about something that, had we actually paid attention and listened instead of acting like we know everything to those people 100 years ago when the flu first come out, we might not be where we are right now. You know, so you see those kind of things. But I thought, you know, that with everything, it's the worst year ever. And then I thought, and it is for us.
That's right.
Because, you know, I'm over 50. I've never seen anything that shut the world down.
That's right.
You know, so I can't imagine a teenager at what they're like. Oh my God. Because to me, there's defining moments of your life. Some of the defining moments that they've missed have been prom, Sweet 16 birthday parties, graduation, the senior that's the incredible athlete that's, you know, even all public schools have shut down all sports until January 21st.
That's right.
So there's a whole baseball season last year.
That's right.
And there's, you know, I'm chaplain at Sumter High School, but there's some of those baseball kids that were on the bubble of, hey, I can get a scholarship to get it, that lost that now because they didn't get to showcase their talents.
That's right.
You know, and I look at all that from that standpoint, but then I thought about spiritually. We do the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, we fuss at the world, but we do the same thing because here we are. Have we learned anything from 100 years ago?
No.
Have we? Because to be honest with you, church still fight the same battle now that they were fighting 100 years ago.
Right.
And you know, here we are. We try to want unity, but then we publicize small groups.
That's right.
Or we're like, it's the greatest new thing of what? Separating and creating cliques? You know, I mean, you can look at it from all different standpoints. I've nothing against small groups. I think small groups are good. But I mean, it's all in my brain of thinking, wow, you know, did we learn anything from the flu? Have we, you know, or whatever now? But this is why this thing opened like this. God does not change.
That's right.
So the God of 100 years ago with the flu is still same God in the pandemic. Now, the people have changed. Yep. You know, COVID, not just say pandemic, because the flu is a pandemic.
That's right.
But people have changed. In fact, I heard my granddad used to say this, and my uncle says this now. My uncle Levon Young, he says this a lot. He says, educated beyond their own intelligence.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought, I used to, what does that even mean? But now I get it. We have become so analytical of everything. We have become so skeptical of everything. We got to have science prove everything instead of just having faith to realize, you know what? The God back then is the God now. Now, I'm not saying don't go to doctors, none of that, because you're an idiot if you don't, because God gave that doctor a brain to help you help yourself.
That's right. Well,
you know, that kind of thing.
That ties back in when we first started this, and I don't know if anybody remembers, I said my favorite story of trusting God and having faith in God, and that's what this is all. And I see people putting on Facebook, oh, if you wear a mask or if you do this, you're living in a state of fear. I heard the pastor say it this morning. Look, just be smart.
Right.
Wear your mask. Don't be in a state. We're not preaching fear. We're not preaching.
No.
We don't want you to be fearful of living your life because the Lord has got it in control. But my favorite story of all time, and real quick, and then we'll jump back into the story. But he says, you know, the man that the flood's coming, and the man's at his house, and people come by and say, hey, man, we got to go. We got to get out of here. He said, no, the Lord's going to take care of me. He says, okay, well, stay here. And then so waters get up a couple feet, boat comes by. He says, hey, man, get on the boat. We got to go. He said, no, man, the Lord's going to take care of me. I'm not living in a fear. The Lord's going to deliver me. But I said, oh, whatever. And then he gets up on the roof, and the helicopter comes. And, you know, he says, man, come on, you got to go with us. He says, no, the Lord's going to take care of me. And then he dies. He gets to heaven. He said, hey, what happened? He said, dude, I sent you a people and a boat and a helicopter. I mean, you got to go with somebody. You know, I tried to help you, that kind of thing. So, you know, but it's like, but that's what, so just because we talk about you taking measures and stuff, you know, precautions and stuff, we're not saying that the Lord can't handle this situation, but be smart about it and that kind of stuff. And the Lord is not going to change. And that's where we've tried to start from March of this year through the end of the year, is all this stuff has been bad. Right. And we started in March talking about, you know, kids losing graduation, kids losing athletic seasons. We didn't know what was going to happen with anything else. We didn't know summer camps
right.
were canceled. We lost
Yep.
youth camp. We lost Winterfest this
Yep.
year. Looks like we're probably going to lose Winterfest again this
Yep.
year.
That's right.
That kind of thing. And so
And possibly youth camp again.
probably the youth camp
Yeah.
again, because we got a long way to go before that's
That's right.
kind of acceptable. And so anyway, just be smart and be mindful, but let us tie all this back in together where we're going, and listen to what the Lord can do, and know that He's not, our circumstances are going to change. The pandemic's going to change. I wish y'all could see Jimmy making a mask right now. But anyway, no, the Lord's going to be there for you. He's going to be through the pandemic, even if it's we get over COVID and
Right.
and a year from now it's something else.
That's right.
The Lord's going to be there, and the Lord's going to be able to do that. But I tell you, this starting off, and this story that this thing gave is an amazing story. One, I've actually read the book, Unbroken by Laura Hildebrand, and I've actually read a couple of her other books, The Forgotten 500, and I like old kind of war books and
Right.
that kind of stuff. And so I've actually read this book, and I've read this story or read about the story. And then I didn't know the part about the other thing. I don't think some of this is not in the book, but basically, Laura Hildebrand, she writes about World War II,
Right.
a lot of the kind of obscure things in World War II. The Forgotten 500 is like a plane rescue where they rescue people. Anyway, they're good books. Probably boring for most of y'all, but if you want to read them, read them. But basically, she writes about Unbroken. It's about Louis Zamperini's life in World War II. He was resilient. He had many trials, tribulations. He joined the Army in 1943. Obviously, we all know what happened after that. They go off to the war, World War II.
Right.
One of the casualties left and right. One of the obviously World War. Hopefully, we never have another one of those to live through. But he's been through that. But anyway, his shipwrecks. He's lost at sea for 47 days.
This is amazing to me. This whole little part right here.
47 days lost at sea. I mean, can you imagine being in sharks, dehydration, no food, scrounging for this, scrounging for that. He's, obviously he's thirsty. He reaches land. So he's thinking, you got to imagine you're out in the middle of the ocean for 40
Right.
days. All of a sudden you see land. You're thinking, oh, thank the Lord, I'm finally.
You know good and well he had the spirit of Eeyore on him.
But I'm saying, but when you finally see the land, you're thinking, I'm gonna make it.
Yes,
I can get
I'm
to the
saved.
land. I'm saved. So he gets to the land, everything's great, right? Wrong. He gets to the wrong land,
That's right.
and so he's captured as a POW
In Japan.
in Japan from the Navy. And at this time, back in World War II, there wasn't a whole lot of Geneva Convention
Right.
rules of engagement.
Right.
You didn't have to
Right.
treat POWs with the
You know what?
respect.
Though? This is a great example of don't ever ask the question, well, what else can go wrong?
Yeah.
First of all,
That's right.
you shipwreck.
That's right.
Well, what else can happen? Then you survive 47 days. Well, what else can happen? Then you land you land and you're like, whoa, and say, oh shoot, it's the enemy's territory. It's like one bad thing after another in this guy's life.
That's right.
It's almost like, what did I do, God?
That's right. So okay, so he gets there. One of the top
Yeah.
war criminals, I guess you could say at the time, is running this POW camp. Matsuura Wannabe, nicknamed the Bird.
See, now I've heard this.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
So he's torturing Zamperini for 2 years. He lives in torture.
You
47
imagine that
days
torture back then.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It wasn't like
That's right.
they put you in a prison
Yep.
and made you sit
There
out in the heat or something.
there are even laws and guidelines now that set up
even if you
even
are
for war
captured,
crime.
yeah.
Exactly right.
Which I'm
you
not
can't
sure
do this, waterboard, whatever.
Probably all countries don't follow them, but
No, right.
But back then, for sure, there wasn't even rules against.
No,
them. So,
nothing.
Anyway, he survives 2 years. He's already survived the shipwreck. He's already survived 47 days at sea. He survived 2 years of probably the worst torture that you can even imagine.
Now, before we go any further, is all this in the book of how he got free and all that? Because if it is,
yeah.
I want to read this book because I want to know how he got out of that.
Yeah,
crap.
it talks about,
Gotcha.
it goes through the whole story and everything. But anyway, so we're going to skip over that. But anyway, he gets out of the POW camp. He goes home. He marries. He has a baby girl. But obviously,
right.
just the sheer torture that he endured
Right.
just continues to wear on him, wear on
Can't
him. wear on
imagine
him.
the mental anguish.
But this is what's crazy, and this is really what stuck out to me. It says his wife urged him to attend a Billy Graham evangelistic gathering, and that doesn't seem like a big deal. But we've talked. You know how many times have we talked about? We did a whole series on the no name,
Absolutely.
being the no name.
Yep.
Well, unless you know about this guy or you read his story, we don't, in this part it doesn't even tell who his wife is.
No.
His wife urged him to go to a Billy Graham event.
Right.
So this is where things kind of turn. He goes to Billy Graham. He finds the forgiveness. He finds the redemption that only the Lord can give at this point.
You ain't lying.
So he goes through all everything he's done, everything he's gone through. He realizes what it means to be faithful to God, because he's looking and saying, you know what, there's no way I'll make it through that without God,
Right.
Being there for me and everything. So he turns away, he walks away from all that bitterness, all that sorrow, all that thing. Now this is the crazy part. He seeks out Matsuro Wannabe, the bird, and offers forgiveness for the torture that the Japanese war criminal put him through. So, I mean, to me, I read that and I thought, there's no way in the world I would ever do that. I mean, I'm looking at myself and I'm thinking to myself, I feel like I'm a good Christian.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And you're more
and I'm
laid back.
kind of laid back.
Yeah.
That kind
not
of stuff.
confrontational.
That's right. That kind of stuff. I'm like, kind of go with the flow. All right, whatever. I'm not gonna hold a grudge against you. Whatever.
Right. That's right.
But no way in the world I'm forgiving this man for
So
2
if
years.
you not imagine me,
You know what I'm saying?
because I'm not laid back.
Right.
I'd be in your face ready to knock you out.
So basically, the moral and the long story short part of this is, as Christians, our circumstances are going to change from day to day. We might be
That's
in the
right.
ocean one day,
Right.
fighting off sharks and doing whatever. We might be on the land getting tortured.
Yeah.
We might be in the house
That's
married
exactly
with
right.
a family and this and that. We
Yeah.
might be at the Billy Graham
Right.
event learning how to forgive, and we might be on the mountaintop as far as Christianity goes, and then the next time we might be in the valley in the torture camp.
Yep.
The circumstances change, but God does not change.
You know,
Through all this, God was there.
I would love to dig in and know what was his life like after the second confrontation with the bird. When you go and you say, look, man, I forgive you. Because, I love Medea. But Medea's stuff is, you forgive somebody not for them, for you.
For you.
And it says here that he went through mental anguish, that there was torture. I can't imagine the thoughts that he would have, of first of all being shipwrecked, second of all being 47 days on a raft or a boat or a plank or whatever he was on. Doesn't really say.
Right.
We don't know that he was on one of them like that.
It might not have been anything.
It might not have been anything.
He might have been swimming around.
Yeah, he might have been floating on a paddle.
That's right.
I don't know. But to landing on shore, there's a glimmer of hope, and then realize, oh, it's the wrong shore. Then being tortured of all. You can't tell me that PTSD.
Yeah.
Wasn't even a thing then. But I can't imagine what he went through. Waking up with night sweats,
sure.
with whatever. What happened when he released that? I wonder. You wonder if it's one of those that it says once he forgave him. I'm sure not all of it went away, but was there a deeper inner peace for him? Because if there was, which I can't help but believe there was. I believe if you step out and you do something like this,
right.
God's going to reward that. I just believe God's too faithful not to. So if that's the case, how do you think he would have felt? And you can play the what if game all the time, but how he would have felt had during the moment he made a decision that he would have never been able to forgive him. Yeah. Would he have bottled up that unforgiveness? Would that bitterness eat at him? I've told this story numerous times. When I had the chance to see my dad after quite a few years, my sister found him and said, hey, we're going to see him. Do you want to go? And I'm like, yes, I do. Yeah. And I'm not going to lie. I went with complete different mindset than what they were going with. They were going, oh, we found Dad. And I'm going, I found Dad. I'm not the same kid no more now.
That's right.
I'm a grown man now, dog. That kind of thing. So, I was practicing what I was going to say.
Oh, yeah.
And then basically when you get there, and I'm not going to lie, it was one of my sisters that were like, don't do that. Look at him. And you look at him in that state and you're like, he was helpless basically. And it was almost like God checked my spirit and said, if you do, what you going to do I have a right to? I absolutely did. But if you do that, it's going to haunt me. And I basically was, you know what? I got two things to say to you. You can't change the fact that you're my dad.
Yeah.
But I love you because you are my dad, and I forgive you.
Yeah.
And that's what was done then. And I'm not going to lie. It was almost like, dang. And what's sad to say is that hadn't been very, very long ago. I've been in ministry years.
Yeah.
But what's sad to say is that was almost like an epiphany for me.
Yeah.
Of wow. So you look at this and you wonder, did the forgiveness release him from some of that? And if it did, you think this is the worst year ever?
Yeah.
Imagine this guy year.
That's right. And I think, when you read the story and you think about it, when he went to this guy, to the bird, that guy probably had no idea who he was.
No.
Because, he had tortured so many people.
You tortured me, along with thousands and thousands of other ones.
And so like you said, that the bitterness and the unforgiveness and the suffering that he was enduring was not hurting. The other guy wasn't thinking about it. He probably was dealing with his own demons from doing everything he did, but he wasn't focusing on this person.
That's right.
And so, that's the thing, and that's where we get into James. If you haven't read the book of James, is
incredible book.
Is a good one to read at any time. Anytime you're going through anything, James has a fairly good, and it's short. It's easy to read, but it's got a lot of life applications. But here, James 1, this is the first chapter of James, verse 12 through 18. It says, "Blessed is the man who endures temptation, for when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life which the Lord has promised to those who love him. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed. Then when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. Do not be deceived, my beloved brethren. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. Of his own will he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we may be a kind of first fruits of his creatures." So basically, we get that all the time, and we just went through talking about the story of Job, and everybody, you hear it all the time. Job, the Lord tempted Job, and no. If you read the story, the devil tempted Job.
That's right.
And an attempt to turn him from God. The devil
asked for permission.
That's right. Asked for permission to tempt Job so he could turn him to prove that he was not the man of God. But so, and that's the main thing there you talk about. But tempted by God is not tempted by God, but then the desire brings forth the sin brings forth death. So we've all heard that, for wages of sin is death, all that kind of stuff. We've gone through all that kind of stuff, but really here on the focus is in verses 12 and 13, it is promised to love, but it is given to endurance. It's the love of God which rates our love and rewards it, but rewards it partly by trying it and then ultimately by bringing forth the crown. For those who love him, love is promised to those who love him. You will receive the crown of life. That kind of stuff, we don't. We talked a couple weeks ago about Paul and about how he always talks about finishing the race. And here we are, we're finishing the year. We're finishing this thing, this pandemic, this awful worst year that we've ever gone through. But the Lord's still there. He's still there for us, and that's that. We've talked about it. We've gone over it 100 different ways you can say it, and different things. We've gone through different books of the Bible. We've gone through all different stories. We've talked about how doing things can lead to this, and we've tried to kind of steer you guys into, how can we be around other people? How can we bring each other up? How can we work together? How can we do all this kind of stuff? How can we get through the worst year ever with each other, with all this stuff? But the fact remains that once you get to the end of the race, the Lord is there.
Absolutely.
And he's been there the whole time.
With your trophy.
That's right. And so no matter what you're going through, no matter where you are in this life and where you are in this year and where you are throughout all of this, the Lord has been there and will continue to be there. But, each is tempted and is drawn away by his own desires.
Right.
And I think that, that's where we come in and you say, well, we're going through all this stuff, man. How can the Lord sit here and let us go through this kind of pandemic? Right. And how can the Lord be, people that are doing good things for him? And we talked about how good things happen or bad things happen to good people.
Right.
And, we've how many times have we heard that message and all this kind of stuff? And what we have to be honest with ourselves is bad things aren't happening to good people. Good people are letting bad things happen.
That's right.
Having their own desires, even no matter what you think. I mean, the preacher of the church, the youth minister, the youth worker, the Christian kid that's leading the devotions, and
right.
They're going through this no different than the kid that has no idea who Jesus is, the adult that has no idea, who's never heard of Jesus or has no idea. You're making the same decisions. So,
well, we have a misconception as church folk, and this is one of the issues that I have with the whole prosperity gospel thing. It's actually disproven right here. Just the first part of verse 12. Blessed is the man who endures temptation. For when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life which the Lord has promised to those who love him. In other words, there's going to be crap in your life. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen. Nobody is exempt from it. And I mean, blessed is the man who endures. In other words, when I hear the word endure, I'm like, okay, so this ain't just here it is, and you move on.
That's right.
That's a whole different element right there.
Yeah, I mean, enduring something to me signifies, and you can listen to preachers that are way smarter than me and Neil go through the Hebrew breakdown of what word says what word, what word came from this and what word came from that. When I read the word endure, though, and I hear the word endure, I'm thinking of something like if it says blessed is the man who just barely finishes the race, or something like that,
right?
Or blessed is the man who gets through temptation. Okay, well, that's not too bad, whatever.
That's right.
Blessed is the man who endures temptation. That, to me, sounds like something's going to be happening for a long period of time.
That's exactly right. That's right.
Like, if I'm going to get through watching a movie, it's like, well, it's not too bad, I'm going to get through it. If I have to endure watching a movie, you sitting there for 2 hours going, man, this is terrible. You know what I'm saying? Like I just endured the worst movie of my life,
See, the word endure for me is not a positive thing either. It's like, oh my God, I'm fixing to have to endure a Hallmark Christmas movie.
That's right, that kind of thing. So it's like, there's a whole different connotation to just getting through anything. We pick at each other and stuff and talk about how we getting into heaven, and my father-in-law, he cracks me up. He always talks about, he said, when I get to the gate, I'm gonna be getting in, I'm gonna be getting in like that, crawling in, getting in or whatever, and we pick and laugh and carry on. But like just getting into something or getting through something.
Hey, can you look in that book again? Let me tell you how to spell my name. You didn't find it the first time.
Hey, well, hang on. Let me spell my name right.
It's big wrong.
That's right. So you talk about just getting through something like, okay,
right.
Just get through it. Or we've talked about how if we can just get through this one little thing, things will get better, that or whatever. But when you endure something, you endure. You're in for the long haul.
Absolutely.
And what we thought back in March was going to be a short kind of.
That's exactly
because everything
right.
at the beginning was let's get through this first little bit.
Yep.
Get through this first little pandemic. We'll shut everything down. Get through this, and then by the summertime, it's going to get warm. It'll be fine.
It'll be gone. Heat kills it. Yeah.
That's right. Obviously, we are now in the enduring phase of the COVID pandemic. We have endured this for 6-7 months now. So
that's right.
Or 8 months, really. So that's where if you endure temptation, if you're going to suffer.
Absolutely.
I would love to be able to sit up here and tell you guys, hey, it's going to be easy sailing. Get through this one little bit. Man, we're home free from here. We got to worry about nothing else.
Right.
You're going to have one little thing in your life that's going to slow you down a little bit. You get through that, boom, smooth sailing from here on out. Yep. But that's not how it's going to be.
No.
I'm 38 years old. I can tell you, it's almost like sometimes you sit there and you think, when you go through life, and I hate to complain, and I hate to like, woe was me, because I've had to go through all this kind of stuff or whatever, because I look around and I see people that have it way worse than I do.
That's
and that kind
right.
of stuff.
That's right.
But at whatever level you're on, economically, socially, spiritually, physically, whatever level you're in life, there's always going to be something, and it seems like it's awful to think, but around the corner, there's always something else.
Yep.
You get
Absolutely.
through this, there's something else. You
Yep.
get through this, there's something else. And you think, why is it like that? Why do we continue to do this? But, the Lord tells you right
You know,
there.
it's kind of like fixing a car.
Yeah.
You get, I think it's the battery. So you get a new battery, you put a new battery in. Oh, it's
Okay.
going to work. Then it don't. Well, what is it now? Oh, I think it's the fuel pump. So then you get the fuel pump changed,
That's right.
get it working. Okay, now think that's it. Then it's now it might be the alternator. That kind of thing. I mean, look here. That and while it's easy to see it from a car standpoint because that's the material, that's
right.
the physical we can see it. Life is like that too.
Yeah.
And this is the hardest thing to get teenagers to understand because most of their things are handled by the adult in the house.
That's right.
My kids have no clue of a light bill.
No.
My kids have no clue of the cable bill. That's more than the light bill. Cable's ridiculously expensive, and your cable companies are gouging. But anyway, they have no clue of that. They have no clue of the things with the water bill, the sewage bill, the trash pickup bill, the car insurance, and none of that. And look, in their defense, rightly so, we don't all that.
Right.
But they don't understand it, and all of a sudden they become an adult, and you see it from the financial side of, I can't catch a break.
Yeah.
I got money set aside for this, trying to save it. Now I've had to use this on this, and it just it grows. Spiritually, it's the same thing. Spiritually, there's not an area of your life that's not attacked that way.
That's right.
Okay, I killed this giant. I've been struggling with my attitude, or I've been struggling with my mouth. I've been struggling with addictions. I've been struggling with whatever. And you get past that, and there's going to be something else. Why? Because it's growth.
That's right.
Growth is going to require pains. And I've said this a bunch of times. I've never learned anything taking a test.
No.
You learn from all the preparation up to that point.
That's right.
The test should be to validate what you should already know.
That's right.
The test is given to say, okay, I've taught you for, this chapters or this quarterly test. I've taught you this information. Now we're going to see what's done. And when I started to look at my spiritual life from that same kind of standpoint of like, God, why are you doing this to me? I'm not doing nothing. I'm just giving you a test because I've basically taught you this listening.
That's right.
Were you listening? Were you listening?
And it seems like at the time there's things as I get older and as I hopefully get wiser.
Right.
But like you said, when me and Stacy were first married, we did things with no outlooks, so to say, for the future. We did things, whatever.
Right.
Hey, we want to go to Charleston for the weekend. Sure, we ain't got no responsibility.
We wasn't planning for Wilkes and Carson.
Right. But then,
Right.
but then it's you start having children.
Yep.
So you start setting things aside. Then with
Yep.
children come all kinds of crazy. Me and Stacey were laughing the other day. We were going through bills and doing this, and she said, "Well, we got this amount of money left over. We can probably put that in savings." And I was like, "Have you lost your mind? We can't put nothing in savings." You know what I'm saying? Good and well something's gonna come up that we gonna have to
That's
spend that
exactly
money.
right.
So we were laughing. But in all seriousness, it's always something, and it feels like
It is.
if you sit down and you dwell in that moment of,
Right.
oh my gosh, it's always something. What's the next thing?
we become
What's the
so
next thing? What's the
ungrateful.
next thing? What's the next thing bad going to happen? What's the next thing bad going to happen? But then I look back and here we are, 12 years into marriage, and we got 3 kids, and we got school, we got all this stuff, and it's like, man, it's piling on. But then I look back and I think about, when I remember when we went through that, and
Right.
we didn't know
Right.
we were having children, young children, and all the stuff with Tucker was going on, and it was
That's
like,
right.
what are we going to do? We don't have the money to do this. We don't have the money to do that. And then we work through this, work through that. Now we come out on the other side, and it's like, yes, there's going to be something else. But now I know
Yeah.
I know kind of to expect something.
Absolutely.
And I know what to do when it comes. But
Right.
also, I've been through that, so if it comes again,
That's right.
I'm not going to worry.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And that's the same thing as a spiritual life. is
Absolutely.
When you go through these trials and you go through these tribulations and you go through these temptations and you go through all this stuff and you think, God, what else are you going to throw at me? Like,
That's right.
I can't take it.
Right.
Then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute.
This isn't
I've already
as
been
bad
through
as-
that. I
Yeah.
know how to go through that, so I can get through that.
That's exactly right.
It's like we talk about athletics a lot, and I know some of y'all may understand how this works, but as you lift weights and you train, and we were talking about Stephen running last week.
Yeah.
Stephen didn't just get up one morning and say, you know what, I'm
Oh,
going to run 100
miles.
miles.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, I'm going to run 4 or 5 miles. And, whew, man, that was tough.
Yep.
All right, next week I'm going to run a few times. And next week I'm going to try to push it to 7 miles. And then next week I'm going to try to push it to 10 miles. And then all of a sudden he's pushing himself. You know what? That 40-mile run to me
Right.
and you, that would,
Right.
I mean, I
Right.
would literally probably die if you said you have to go run 40 miles right
Oh,
now.
I know I would.
But Stephen's like, 40 miles? Yeah, man, I
can do that.
That ain't no problem.
Yeah. But even in that training, what do you think? Endurance race,
Yeah.
basically, the enduring again. What do you think? Okay, I've learned I got to have the right kind of shoes. I've learned if I do this or that, I'm going to get blisters. I'm not going to make it on whatever. If I've got to breathe through my nose for this part, my mouth through this part, whatever. All those things are learned by somebody who keeps doing it.
That's right.
And it's to help better themselves to be a better runner. And when you look at it from that standpoint, that's why I can't run. But what do we do spiritually? Okay, I struggle at this point, or this is the time of year when I really need to buckle in and get focused in, and this is whatever. One of the blessings and curses of being a youth pastor is I know inside information about folk.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I talk a lot and they do, but there's a lot of stuff I know people don't know. Nobody knows.
Oh, yeah.
And except the person going through it. And I can't share that or whatever. But the thing about that, the curse part of it is hurts my heart. Yeah. And I take on that burden. I really do. To the point of even anger sometimes. I wanted to fight some people over the way they've treated some of my students. And so that part is there. But the blessing part that comes out of that is that I see them, and when I think, God, what else can happen to me? I'm like, I am so much more blessed than so-and-so.
Yeah.
My kids are
yeah.
way more blessed than so-and-so. And I look even in life with some adults, and I'm like, just when I think, oh, God, this is bad, poor, pitiful me, there's always somebody that you come in contact with that you're like, wow, when you look at their need and you're like, I'm pretty blessed.
Yeah.
I'm pretty blessed. And this is a lot of what he's talking about in this whole thing of every good and perfect gift comes from above. In other words, the opposite of that is if it's not good, it didn't come from God.
Right.
So, you want to blame God of everything, which leads into this, and this is going to be a name a lot does not recognize except for those who like to deeply study things, because John Calvin is a genius. Mm-hmm. John Calvin writes some stuff that I have to read some of his stuff with a dictionary because I'm like, what is he talking about?
That's right.
But I found this and I left this in just because this comes from his commentaries on the Bible. And if you've never read anything from John Calvin, I challenge you. Mm-hmm. Now I'll be honest with you, this ain't for Christians who've just gotten saved, and because he can get very, very deep, very, very quick.
Absolutely.
But he talks about verse 17, and let me read that again. I just quoted it, but let me read it again. In James chapter 1, verse 17. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and it comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. In other words, he's the same.
Same.
So John Calvin writes this part. Now, this is going to get deep too. This reasoning is far different from that of Plato, who maintained that no calamities are sent on men by God because he is good. For though it is just that the crimes of men should be punished by God, yet it is not right with regard to him to regard among evils that punishment which he justly inflicts. Plato indeed was ignorant. Now that you got some guts right there, because you just blew up the whole Greek world right there. So it was ignorant. But James, leaving to God his right and office of punishing, only removes blame from him. This passage teaches us that we ought to be so affected by God's innumerable blessings, which we daily receive from his hand, as to think of nothing but of his glory, and that we should abhor whatever comes to our mind or is suggested by others, which is not compatible with his praise. That right there is enough to make you shout.
That's right.
You know, basically what he's saying, to break this down, is basically that you have no right to complain about anything.
Yeah.
If you just look at the little things that God has blessed you with. You know, and I've heard this said, you know what? We said this during Thanksgiving. What if you have tomorrow only what you were thankful for today? Would you have air to breathe? You know, that is a miracle within itself when you don't realize this. And I wish I'd have paid more attention in school. But when you go back and look, well, the plants suck this in and put the oxygen out, which you that whole process, that whole method of oxygen being created by things is just, it's amazing when you look at it from that standpoint. But it's one of those things that it's just there. We take it for granted.
Oh, yeah.
But that is a miracle that is set up, that science has proved. It's like, God, thank you that I even have air to breathe. Mm-hmm. That's amazing to me. And this is what he's saying. The innumerable blessings which we daily receive from his hand. Now, and then he goes in and says, God is called the Father of lights, as possessing all excellency and the highest dignity. And when he immediately adds that there is in him no shadow of turning, he continues the metaphor so that we may not measure the brightness of God by the irradiation of the sun which appears to us. Wow.
Yeah.
You know, we had not long ago, remember the eclipse? Mm-hmm. You know, the sun can go, or we got clouds that can block the sun. Doesn't mean the sun's not shining, but we don't see it. It goes down at night. We have a moon, you know, all this kind of stuff, whatever. And what he's basically saying is there's no shadow and there's no turning. In other words, you will never ever eclipse God.
That's right.
There will never ever be a cloud in your life that's going to outshine God. There will never ever be anything, even when it's raining, that sun, S-O-N, always shines. And when John Calvin brings this out, you know, like I said, it's kind of deep. But when you stop and you look at some of those, basically what he just said was, you better be thankful for the air that you have. Yeah. The blessings of life that we have. I mean, we can look back and say, this is the worst year ever. I seen some that just had like a ring ceremony for just some of their friends, which was an incredible idea. Yeah. You know, I love it. But I look back, you know, that's big for them, and I understand that. But for me, I don't even remember my graduation. For me, I got a high school ring that's not even from the school I graduated from. For me, because I got kicked out right before. But anyway, and you look at all that, and I'm like, that's no big deal to me. So what's worst year for some of them is not even remotely in my radar for that kind of thing. So you look at some of this, and you can easily say it's the worst year ever. But then I look, this is just personal testimony part. For me, what it has done is it has refocused some of my priorities, just to be honest. It has reestablished the simplicity that has been often overlooked or disregarded, to be honest, because we've got to have 200 channels. For what? Yeah. When you look at us, we basically watch the same 5 channels.
That's right.
In fact, my kids don't even watch TV anymore. Now it's all about Netflix and Hulu or Disney Plus or whatever. And so, worst year ever? As a whole, yeah, you can make a claim for that. But for me personally, I'm like, it's not the worst one I've ever had.
That's right.
Because there's been some things that have happened in my life that were much worse than making me slow down or making me sit in a lawn chair in my front yard and actually meet neighbors who've lived there for 15 years that I didn't even know their name. Right. Or to stop and just say, you know what, God? Thank you for the air that I have to breathe out here.
I think, and we're doing the series and we're talking about the worst year ever. But if you really break it down in the simplest terms, and like you were just saying, it's really probably, instead of the worst year ever, it's probably the most inconvenient year ever.
That's good. You know, that's real good.
We're not
absolutely.
Really, because there's never going to be there's always going to be something worse that's going to happen. Personally, each person can go. Now, you may have lost a loved one due to COVID, and that has caused your worst year ever.
Right.
You know, that kind of thing. But had it been any other year and you lost that same loved one to something else, that would have been your worst year.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's not necessarily just that. But like I said, and you hit the nail on the head when you say, if you break it down into the simplest of terms of what things we should be thankful for.
Right.
We constantly do this. Oh, I don't have nothing. I don't have this. I don't have that. I don't have this. Look at so-and-so. I don't have that. But, I mean, if you really break it down into, if you woke up this morning, that in itself is a blessing from God.
That's exactly right.
Because he gave you the air to breathe. He gave you the food to eat. And not only food to eat, but he set your body up where it breaks down that food to give you nutrients, to give you, you know, there's thousands of miracles that go on each and every day just in your body
that's exactly right.
Cause you to get up and take a step. The way your brain reacts to your thing, you know, you can break it down 100,000 different ways. But the simplistic nature is to say, you know, I've got this, I can't handle this, I've got that, this is the worst year ever, I don't have anything, I got people that are sick, I lost my job. You know, those things in itself are terrible.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, anything, if you didn't have your graduation, if you didn't get to play your athletic season,
right,
if you didn't get to do this, and students, if you were watching this and all that stuff happened, that's terrible. But I'm going to be 100% honest with you, that's not going to be the worst thing that's going to happen to you in your life.
No.
And that may be a Debbie Downer kind of thing,
but it's reality.
But that's reality. And if you want to get real and you want to talk real and you want to be open and honest,
that's right.
You missing your graduation? Are you missing your senior prom? Are you missing your senior athletic season? Are you missing your freshman year of college because you had to do it remote and you didn't get to go get the experience of college?
Right.
And that in itself is terrible. But I promise you, that is not the worst thing that's going to happen to you. But what it is going to do is when something bad happens again, you're going to say, you know what?
Absolutely.
I just missed all this stuff.
I can handle this.
I can handle it. You know what? If I don't get to graduate from my college graduation, but I get my diploma and I get my job, you know what? Oh, well, I didn't get my high school graduation either. So, you know what? I'm not going to let it hold me back and that kind of thing.
That's right.
And so, and like you said, it's really caused us to kind of refocus and I think we've got some other things on here, but if you don't mind, this kind of hit me, and I was thinking, as we wrap this up, we'll kind of get away from the message here, and just kind of say, as we wrap this series up, as we wrap our year up on this is kind of our year in review, year end kind of thing. We got a few more minutes here, but the things that we've gone through this year. The craziness, the pandemic, we started out, like I said, with all this stuff and it wasn't going to be that big of a deal, and now it's turned into a big deal, and we've gone through one of the most tumultuous presidential elections of all time, especially in my lifetime. The country right now is divided beyond division.
Yep.
The races are divided among division, whether it's manufactured by whatever you want to believe and whatever theory you want to believe in it. That's the cold hard fact is even if you get into these, it's all manufactured by whatever groups leading whatever, and whatever political parties leading whatever, and whatever this and that. Churches are broken right now.
Yep.
People are broken right now.
Yep.
We've talked about this, and I know you've heard this on here. If you've watched 5 minutes of any of these things, the simple fact is we have to love each other.
That's right.
As we finish this year out, and as we kind of go off script here, and I'll apologize to Neil later, the greatest commandment that God gives is to love.
That's exactly right.
To love the Lord your God with all your heart. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's the two. There's 10 commandments, but that's the two things when Jesus is asked, what are the greatest of these?
That's exactly right.
That's his two things. You know what both of those include? Love. And to not downplay it into simple terms, but it really is that simple.
It is.
And sometimes we want to make it complicated. Yeah, but I can't love so and so because he doesn't believe this, and if you believe that, then you can't be a friend of mine, and you can't do this, and I'm gonna block you on Facebook, and I'm gonna block your Snapchat and your Instagram and all this kind of stuff. You know what? The longer this stuff goes on, and the longer this stuff kind of goes out, and the older I get to, it goes into effect. There's no place for that.
No,
especially in the church. If you want to call yourself a Christian, if you want to call yourself a church person, and you can't love your neighbor, it's easy. I don't want to say it's easy to love God, but if you're a church-going person and you're a Christian, you know you're supposed to love God.
That's right. And
you know you're supposed to put God above everything else. And we can preach 100 different sermons about you putting your priorities in check and doing this and doing that. And it comes down to God being first. But anybody that's spent 2 minutes in church knows that God should be the priority.
Right.
Now, is it always that easy? No.
No.
But people know that. And people have heard, love your neighbor, love as you love yourself. But that one's tough.
Mm-hmm. Very tough.
There's people in church that I don't like. I mean, and Neil and Jimmy are laughing because we've had that conversation before. Sitting in this room with just the three of us, and there's people in this church that I don't like, and I'm sure there's people in this church that don't like me. And that's okay. But to get through a pandemic, to get through a situation, to get through the worst year ever, the most inconvenient year ever, it takes a little bit of love.
It does.
And it takes a little bit of forgiveness. And it takes a little bit of working on yourself and working on others. Mm-hmm. So take this time. We're here at the end of the year. And the new year is kind of cliche. Everybody gets a fresh start.
Right.
And everybody, I can't wait till 2020 is over because 2021 is going to be different.
It's going to disappear at 12 o'clock,
that's right.
December 31st.
January 1st ain't going to be no different than December 31st as far as what's going on in the world.
Right.
But what it can do is you can take that time to recharge yourself as you're out of school, as you're off work, as you're celebrating Christmas. Sit around, look at your family. Look at the stuff you get for Christmas. I mean, we're talking about trying to buy each other Christmas gifts, and we can't even think of something to buy. We just buy, I'm like, don't buy something just to buy something.
Just to buy something. That's exactly right.
Yep. Because I buy the stuff throughout the year that I want.
Yep.
That I need or whatever. And it's so take the time, sit around, look at the stuff you got, look at the blessings that you got.
That's exactly right.
Find somebody, and this is just as much to me as it is to y'all. Find somebody that you've had some issues with, and go to the man and tell him you forgive him.
Yep.
If they've wronged you, or if you've wronged them, ask for forgiveness.
Yes, exactly right.
And if we really want to make a change in the
if Zamborini can do it, you can do it.
That's right. And if we really want to make a change in 2021, if you want a new year, new me type of deal, love somebody, love on somebody, find somebody to love on, find somebody to give to. We talked about giving. If you listened at all in the message this morning in church, the pastor talked about giving. Be the giver. Jesus was the giver. Be the giver. Be the person that loves somebody. We love you guys. We want you to be back in this room. We want you to be. And I just had a conversation with Tucker, my oldest, the other day, and I said, things that I want for you. Sometimes we're hard on them, we're tough on them about things.
Right.
But it's because I want my kids to be the best they can be. I want them to be better than me.
Absolutely.
I know that's hard, but I want them to be better than me. And so, take it for what it's worth, but we want you guys to be better.
That's right.
I want every kid that sits in this room to be a better Christian than I am. Not because I don't think I feel like I'm a pretty good Christian. I know I got things to do. And I know you feel the same way.
Right.
You've been in youth ministry 20 years. You want that child to be
absolutely
a better Christian than you are.
Right.
Not because you're like, well, I ain't no good. I want them to be better. No, you want them to be better because that's how the world gets better.
Right. That's exactly right.
So, as we wrap up, love on somebody during this holiday season. Find somebody to love on. Find somebody that ain't got nobody and love on them.
Absolutely.
there's plenty of people out there that are hurting. There's plenty of people out there that need somebody. There's plenty of people out there that want somebody to love on them, that are looking for somebody to love on them.
Yep.
So just take this time and I don't really know how to wrap it up here, but take this time and let's just work together as a group, as the Stand Youth Ministries, that we are going to pour into each other this year.
That's right.
Because we've had this, now we're going on 7, 8, 9, however long it's been, 8 months of time where we've been able to refocus our priorities.
Right.
We've been able to refocus, our church has been able to refocus our priorities. And that's not a knock on our church, but all the church in general has been able to refocus its priorities. So don't walk away from this time and not get anything out of it.
That's exactly right.
But
great challenge, great word. Thank you, Eric. Guys, when you started this off, if there's anybody that you need to go ask for forgiveness, or even to go extend forgiveness to them for something, it's not about you being right. It's not about that at all. It's just about saying, hey, this doesn't need to be there. I don't need anything blocking the blessings that God has for me, for my life. And do that. You'd be surprised at how better you feel, how better that person may feel. There may be something you don't even know. And if you don't know, ask the Spirit, reveal to me. Who do I need to talk to? You may have offended somebody and don't even know it. They may not know that they've offended you. When you go and say, hey, look, will you forgive me for having a bad attitude towards you? And then they're like, well, did I do something to cause that bad attitude? You have no idea what dialogue may open up. Then say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that, or I didn't mean to say that, or I didn't mean to. There's nothing better than unity, and there's nothing better than a group. Any team that starts clicking in sports, and it's not necessarily because they got better athletically. That wasn't it. It's just all of a sudden they start to believe in each other. They start to value each other, and they start to gel as that. And we're required to do the same thing spiritually. And when we do that, there's no telling what can be accomplished. No telling what can be accomplished. Remember, nothing until January the 3rd with Sunday night topics. Wednesday night, we will be in the room, 7 o'clock. Make sure that you're here. Bring a friend. Let's pray and we'll close. Father, we thank you so much for your blessings. We thank you for your love. We thank you for every necessity of life that you provide for us. We are a blessed people. And God, we're taken care of. You provide so many things that we often overlook or take for granted. God, I pray that you'd forgive us for those times. I pray, God, that you would help us during this season to love hard and to love without conditions, to find that person that may be struggling, that there's a lack of hope or there's a lack of joy or happiness or even a good feeling, that, God, you would help us to lift someone's spirits during this time. God, I pray that you would help us to be forgiving. I pray that you'd help us to even ask for forgiveness to those that we need to be forgiven for. God, I pray that you would place in our hearts the burden for those that we need to mend and fix relationships with. God, I pray that you would bind us together with cords of love that cannot easily be broken. Lord, I thank you for this ministry. I thank you for each person that has watched or will tune in, that their life will forever be changed because God has become the most important person to them, and it's all about love. We thank you for the love that you showed us during this season, where we celebrate you loving us enough to send your only begotten Son, to put on a earth suit, to become human, so that he could take on the sins of us and pay the price for our salvation. God, we thank you so much for that love. That love will never be matched, never be understood. But God, I pray that you would help us to love the world, to love our neighbor as you loved us. We ask all these things in your wonderful name. Amen.
Amen.